Joining us now is former Trump defense official Andrew Knaggs. He's currently running for the Republican nomination in Virginia's 7th Congressional District. So, Andrew, just a couple weeks ago, it was supposed to be World War III regarding Iran. That was the big story. That's what everybody was focused on. But it's been relatively out of the news cycle for the past couple months now. Is Iran still a serious threat to the U.S.?
First of all, Alex, I want to say thanks for having me on, and I want to send my condolences to the American families that lost their family members, and of course the British allies as well. But yes, without a doubt, Iran is very much still a threat to the United States and our interests and allies around the world.
And it's mostly because of their proxies in other parts of the world where we see some of these attacks coming out. And that's how Iran actually kind of gets away with taking accountability for it. I mean, we've seen it happening in Iraq, for example. We've seen it happening in Syria, just different areas where they kind of have their own forces kind of carrying out these attacks. But they kind of escape liability for that by saying, well, that's not us. That's someone who has ties to us, for example. How have you kind of rated the Trump administration's response to Iran's aggression, to both recently and in regard to the big picture, including the Iran nuclear deal?
I would say under the president's leadership, the administration's response has been measured and in most cases appropriate. Now, with respect to the fact that Iran is using their proxies to accomplish certain attacks against the United States, that's a well-worn path for Iran. They have cultivated this network of proxies that they can utilize to impose costs on us, on the United States, as well as our Western allies, and without creating a direct connection to Iranian leadership. But the fact of the matter is that those proxies do not make any decisions independently, and they certainly, even if not directed, they certainly would not act if told not to do so.
And a big part of those proxies have been in Iraq, and that's something that we've seen actually the U.S. kind of go more aggressively after, especially ever since the killing of General Qasem Soleimani. And meanwhile, we've seen the Iraqi government kind of not exactly be as cooperative as some people may necessarily think. In fact, this latest attack, as we were saying, they kind of said that the U.S. violated their sovereignty in doing so. Are we kind of at a point with the Iraqi government where we may be coming to the end of our ties with them and maybe even seeing a withdrawal?
Well, I think at some point we are going to withdraw. There's no reason for the United States to stay in Iraq indefinitely, and certainly not against the Iraqi people's wishes. Now, the United States, though, is dealing with strong Iraqi allies. Now, the Iraqi decision-making body, the Iraqi parliament, is not a monolith, and there are individuals and groups of members of parliament that are clearly enthralled to Iran and that are responsive to Iran's wishes. But for the most part, I would say that there is nothing imminent that would result in a precipitous withdrawal of U.S. troops because of this attack.
And I want to talk about your race a little bit, too. I mean, you have a very impressive resume. We kind of went through your qualifications when we introduced you. You're also a former Green Beret. You're running in Virginia right now, too, and that's right. A population that is generally very kind of in line with politics. They pay attention to it more maybe than other states because of its geographic proximity. Right. Is foreign policy and this type of stuff, is it a bigger issue going into 2020 maybe than it was going into 2016?
I would say so, yeah, especially given the fact that President Trump has taken actions to impose penalties on attacking U.S. forces and to create more deterrent. But you're absolutely right. The population of the 7th District of Virginia is, I would say, on balance, more informed and definitely more tuned to what's going on around the world. And as you mentioned, my background is very much national security heavy, but also some private sector experience as well. I'm a West Point grad and was a Green Beret. I deployed to Iraq twice for 2 combat tours. I was awarded the Bronze Star Medal for combat actions. And then after 9 years in the Army, I got out and went to law school at William & Mary Law. Started my own law firm, and then a couple of years ago, back in 2017, the Trump administration asked me to join, and I was sworn in as the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Special Operations and Combating Terrorism. And I did that job for the President for 2 years until September of last year, when I left the administration and then launched my campaign on October 1st.
As I said, going head to head, that's a very difficult resume to go up against for anybody, especially in an area, as I was saying, that generally recruits pretty strong candidates. And for all of our viewers, too, if you want to learn more about Andrew and his campaign, you can go to andrewknaggs.com. We've been putting it up on the screen right there. Andrew, thank you very much for coming on tonight and breaking down this very complex situation.